Hi everybody. Let's talk about inking artwork in Adobe Illustrator. First, I'd like to show you a couple samples. When looking at cartoon artwork, typically you'll find that those characters have really unique line quality. Here we've got a little picture of Donald Duck. You can see that he was drawn with thick and thin lines, different variable sizes. Nice bold lines, kind of like you might see in a coloring book. Over here I've got SpongeBob, one of my favorites. Here he's got kind of an interesting variable line around the outside edges and smaller detailed lines on the interior. A very consistent look. Originally, these things were all done by hand, but now a lot of times they're done in the computer. Certainly they can be done in drawing programs like Photoshop, but there is a benefit to doing it in vector art. So when you draw a character in vector art, of course, it's infinitely scalable. You have absolute precise control over your lines, and you're not in danger of spilling your ink all over your table or on the floor. So let's take a look at one more sample here. This, of course, is a nice, beautiful drawing done by Jeff Smith. Hand-drawn, you can see some of the detail in there. Now the process for drawing is very similar. Well, similar in the sense that most character artwork starts with a sketch. When I'm drawing characters, I still draw on paper a lot of times, and I'll draw that on paper, and then maybe I'll take a snapshot of it, scan it or something, take it into Illustrator, and then do my inking process. Or if you've got a tablet and you can do a pencil sketch using one of your drawing tablet programs, that's fine too. But it's rare that anybody would just draw on a blank white page and try to create and craft a perfect character. Most of us need the help of an underdrawing. And so let's look at what I've got over here. I've got this sketch drawn by Tanya Walker, and this is a pencil sketch of Donald Duck. And it's a perfect thing for us to practice with. So to look specifically at the process, I'd almost like to explain the wrong way to do it before I show you the right way. And here's what I mean. Back in the olden times when we would draw art in Illustrator, it was it's kind of a we didn't have some of the variables that we have now. We didn't have some of the adjustments that make it easier to draw now. So you were forced to draw in kind of shape mode. And what I mean by that is if I was going to approach a drawing like this with Donald Duck and I was using the pen tool, let's say I wanted to draw his elbow, I would come along here and start drawing. But you can already see when I get to the wrist, there's a problem there. If I'm trying to continue this drawing around the outline of Donald Duck, especially when you get in here to the fingers, oh, another problem has popped up. The picture's covered in white. Why is that? Well, it's because there's a white fill color. Let me turn that off. But as well, let me change the color of this line so it's a little more obvious. You can see that I run into a problem wherever there's a corner. And of course, ink artwork has this nice extra pointy part here, these extra lines that extend beyond the edges. Well, that's hard to do in Illustrator. Illustrator wants you to make a corner, wants you to make a turn in the line, but it doesn't want to give you that extra finesse of kind of that fold of the wrist, that separation of the finger. So, like I said in the beginning, starting from the olden times, what we would actually do is like draw the entire shape back to where I started, kind of connecting the dots. Okay, and then you would be able to fill that with a color. Let's say I filled it with white, so that I now had my drawing in place. And then I would come in to an area like this and I would actually draw an entirely new line and put it over the top. And let me change its color so it's pretty obvious that it's a different line. I'm going to set that to none. So you would actually take your extra line and kind of put it in place and trying to tune it up so it looks like a finger. Because that was the only way to do it. You had a line segment and you had a shape underneath. It's kind of ugly, isn't it? And it doesn't feel right. Especially when you consider the fact that in this old-fashioned version, you don't have any of that nice line quality. You have a squared end. The best you could do was, round the corner and make kind of a rounded line, but you wouldn't get any of those really nice sharp edges like you see on the inked artwork. Okay, so let me show you a way you can do it nowadays. That's a little bit easier. And the first thing you have to let go of is you have to let go of the worry about coloring your artwork. A lot of times when we're drawing with the pen tool and we're thinking about creating a colored shape or a colored object, we do think about connecting all the dots because we want to have a complete area that can be filled with color. You can let go of that. In a future video, I'll show you how you can actually color line art. But for now, just accept the fact that what we're going to do is we're going to draw line segments and not worry about connecting them. We're just going to worry that they visually look like they overlap one another. So here we go. I'm drawing this elbow, and that's where that line's going to end. But hey, I got a little problem here. I want to make that pointy end. In a previous video, I talked about using the width tool, so I could come over here and I could grab the end of that line and I could taper it. I could widen this one a little bit so I could create these sharp little points of articulation of my stroke. Then I switch back to the pen tool and I can continue drawing. Now, one thing to pay attention to whenever you get in this situation where you're going to start a new line near another one, be careful not to click on the line that's already there. Because what will happen is it'll add an anchor point, but it won't give you a starting point for your new line. So kind of on purpose, you need to hover your cursor off the edge of the line a little bit so that it doesn't interact with the existing vector line. So here I can position my cursor and then move to the next position and then kind of scale it up. Now, even if there's a problem here, there's a gap, well, I can always come back with my direct selection tool and move it. And as I go here, I'm going to change the color so you can see how the lines are overlapping one another. Oh, notice this line hung on to the previous stroke setting I gave it. I can set that back to normal over here by going to the normal uniform profile. I think that's going to work for that one. I want to let go of this line, so I'm going to press escape and then continue to a new position. Kind of round that finger, come back here to that edge. This line, I'm going to change its color. So again, you can see as I'm proceeding, I'm just drawing separate line segments. Here I'll go to the width tool and go to the end of that line and kind of shorten it. And then maybe over here somewhere kind of widen it up again. There we go. Switch back to my pen tool. And I continue going along here with Donald's hand. Another thing to remember is as you draw these lines, don't do this. Click, 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 click. That's not what we're trying to do. We are trying to draw the fewest number of anchor points so that we get a smooth curve. There we go. Don't forget, when you get to a corner like this, you need to move that handlebar. Press Alt or Option on your keyboard. Switch to the anchor tool temporarily. let go of Option, and you can proceed drawing with the pen tool like normal. Bam. So what you do is you have this, assortment of line segments that, are cobbled together, overlapping one another, creating your entire drawing. And over time, you'll build up and draw and create your Donald Duck picture. Now, personally, I prefer drawing with the pen tool because it gives me a lot of precision, and I can always go back and modify it. But it is possible to do this with the pencil tool. In a previous video, I showed you how to use the pencil for inking purposes. But let me show you how that works real quick here with this. I'm going to switch to the pencil tool, which, if you're looking for it, is hidden under the shaper tool. So I'll switch to pencil, and then I'll draw my line, just kind of freehand it over and get to a point where I stop, and it lets go. Draw another line segment. Boom. Now, if I don't like that, I want to fix it, I just select it, come over here, change the profile to what I need it to be, and then I can go back to drawing in another location. So, there's no right or wrong way to do this. It's just what you want to achieve the desired effect. Notice how when I draw, my pencil is remembering the settings that I'm using. That is the New Art Has Basic Appearance setting, explained in one of my other videos. If you're looking for it, under the Appearance palette, there is a New Art Has Basic Appearance setting, and what that does is it remembers the previously used stroke setting, and it doesn't force the pencil to return to a normal line. It's really helpful as you draw. Okay, so that's a little introduction into drawing inking lines on Donald Duck here. And what you would do is spend your time tracing and then going back with your direct selection tool, your pen tool, and just kind of tuning it up, fixing it. And you would do that over the entire picture. And you would want to complete that step before you do any kind of color. And in a new video, I'm going to explain how to do the coloring. But it's very important that you complete all your black and white line art first. Just like you would if you were drawing an inking drawing on paper. You want to finish all the lines before you proceed to using your markers. Same thing here. Want to finish up all the vector lines first, then we'll get into color. Alright, we'll come back and meet up for that later.